It could mean roommates, because what we often do, we replicate the environment that's familiar to us. So does your roommate that really pisses you off, do they remind you of your mother? You're living with someone that reminds you of your father. You're still being pulled back into that old role because it's exactly the same dynamic. It's just playing out with different people. And that's all our dating drama is as well. It's us looking to replicate those dynamics that are familiar to us, and we're just playing out the same dynamic with different people, different men, different women, whoever you date. We're just replicating the dynamic from our family home, which wasn't healthy, because if it was healthy, we wouldn't have to reenact it, because we don't build trauma bonds with healthy people. So hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Cheryl, if you haven't met me before. I'm a relationship expert, and I help you overcome dating drama and really heal the relationship with yourself, trust yourself more, and really feel good about who you are and who you're being in life and love. So a bit of a different video today as I come to you from my little pillow fort, which is really, really comfy. I wanted to really talk about environment and how the environment we're in and the people we're surrounding ourselves with are going to make or break our healing journey. And you've probably heard this before, right? This is probably not a revelation. It's probably not revelatory, whatever the word is. It's probably not going to blow your mind. But it's really a reminder that when you are around people who pull you back into old patterns, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to move forward, have the relationships you want, have the life you want, and really be your best self when you're around the types of people who don't want to see that happen. So I'm going to do a couple things with you today. I'm going to talk you through 3 different points. The first point is around what it looks like when we surround ourselves with people who don't help us move forward, and how to recognize that and why that's a problem, why it pulls us back. The second point is going to be around what happens when we're surrounded by people who really want to see us thrive, and how to create that community who really support you and support your growth. And the third point is one of the questions that I'd really like you to ask yourself to help establish whether you're around people who support your growth or not, and how to tell whether or not that's happening. So the first point, old patterns. Who are the types of people that might pull you back into old patterns or old roles? That is going to be family. It's going to be people you've known from your past, people you knew 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever the case may be. And it's an interesting psychological thing that happens. And we all do this, by the way. It's not just that other people that know us do this, but what we do is when we meet someone, we subconsciously cement them in at that moment in time, and they kind of stay that way in our minds. And sometimes when people grow and evolve, we have to remind ourselves that they're not the person that they were at that moment in time. I've done it, you've probably done it, and certainly the people around us do it too. And so when we're growing and they still see us as a 15-year-old or a kid, or the person they met a decade ago, or the person they used to work with, it's quite difficult for people to compute that you're someone different now. And so it's unlikely that they're going to be able to support your growth, because they're still seeing you as that person you used to be. Now let's talk about family for a second. If you are spending excessive time around your family, this is going to hold you back, and I will tell you as for why. Now, this doesn't apply for people that come from a healthy family, but we don't. We don't, and I know that you don't, because if you did, you wouldn't have dating drama. We have dating drama when we grew up in a home where the family dynamic wasn't healthy, where the relationship dynamics weren't healthy, where there wasn't healthy conflict resolution, and there's probably a lot of other shit that went down as well. It may have been an alcoholic home, there may have been one narcissistic parent, or even 2. There could have been some form of emotional neglect. There could have been a lot of verbal or even physical violence between your parents. All of this really fucks us up psychologically. Yes, that's a technical term. You can use that if you want. It really fucked me up psychologically. But it does, because we're not born thinking that relationships are hard. We're not born putting ourselves in an unhealthy role. We learn it from somewhere, and it's from our family of origin. So I know that about you, because you're watching these videos, and that means you have dating drama or relationship challenges, and I know that comes from your family home. So if you are spending a lot of time around your family, and granted, we're at a time in our cultural collective evolution where many of us are locked down, right? We're going into a second lockdown in England now, and that is something that it is what it is. And maybe that means you're in an environment with people who are not supporting your growth like your family. It could even be an older partner. What happens then when you spend a lot of time with your family, or you're locked down with your family? You're going to be pulled back into an old role. So in unhealthy family systems, there's usually a role that you're put in. There's something called the drama triangle. It's not my creation, but it is something that's very, very brilliant and very helpful. So if you haven't heard of the drama triangle, then definitely look it up. But it can put you in the role of rescuer. It can put you in the role of victim. It can put you in the role of persecutor. None of these are healthy roles. I do also apologise about the construction noise in the background, but here we are, I'm on a roll. Hopefully it's still helpful despite the background noise. Very annoying, I'm sure. I feel it too. I'm with you. This is without even getting into things like codependency. This is without even starting to talk about things like parentification and infantilization. I have a video on this actually in Love Yourself First, which is part of the Empowered Woman bundle, and the details are down below if that's of interest to you. And it's difficult to go into all of that here in one video, but basically parentification and infantilization is when a parent treats their child, I'm going to say child, it's very inverted commas child, because you're their child, but you're an adult, right? You're of an age where the way that they're putting you in a role is not appropriate. So parentification likely happened when you were younger, meaning that you were put in a role older than your years. You were listening to what your parents were sharing with you. You could have been put in an emotional caretaker role, listening to details about their marriage, about their affair, about their love life, about their sex life. Very age inappropriate, right? And you were maybe in your teens at the time. Not a child's child, but certainly at an age where it's inappropriate to hear that kind of behavior. And just because of the role, you're the daughter in that situation, or the son, but they're your parent, right? You're not in the listening role. That's very much their role. A good parent is like a good coach. They should be guiding you through the process of becoming a fully functioning, independent adult. And if that wasn't happening and you were the caretaker, then by definition, that's actually abuse, right? That's actually abuse because their emotional needs are being placed before your own, and you're the one that needs their support because you're their child. They brought you into the world, right? So that's parentification. Infantilization, and you might be experiencing this today, is when you're around family members who treat you younger than your years. So maybe you're in your 20s, maybe you're older than that, and you're being treated like you're 12 or younger, right? 6 or 7. You're not being allowed to do the things that are just basic for you to do, like go and get your groceries, do your own laundry, make your own decisions, make your own friends, make your own community, and you're being held back by this old role that you're being placed in by a parent who is infantilizing you. I know that word sounds super weird and super creepy, but what it means is you're being treated as younger than you actually are. So obviously that is all going to hold you back. That's going to hold you back from being who you really are, because you're being pulled back to this role that you're no longer in. It's no longer appropriate for you to be in that role, right? Age-wise or role-wise. You're not here to be a caretaker for your parents. You're not here to do that. You're here to be who you are in the world. I don't know about you, but that feels kind of heavy, right? It feels heavy. You kind of feel like you're being pulled back. You feel like you're being anchored. And, you know, the image I've been getting for quite a while, and I hope this analogy helps you to understand, is when you're with those people, when you're with old family members, people from your past, it's like you're a speedboat with their anchor down. You have this ability to go so far and so fast so quickly, but your anchor's down, and so any forward movement is going to be greatly reduced, and you're really going to have to go full throttle to even move a tiny amount. So that weighs you down. Let's move on to point 2, because it's a lot more exciting and a lot more juicy and a lot more high vibration, which is new people, new opportunities. That's not going to pull you back, that's going to pull you forward. You're going to have people around you and you're going to build a community around you of people who want to see you thrive, want to see you doing well, want to see you grow, people who encourage you, support you. And you don't feel like you're in an old role with them. That's one way to check, and I'll come to that in point number 3 in a second. That's one way to check, is to ask yourself that question. Do I feel like I'm in an old role? Is this role familiar to me? Because if it is, it's likely that's not a healthy role. So when that role's familiar to us, it means that we're being pulled back. But when it feels new and exciting and we feel expansive and we feel like we're growing and we feel like people are really helping us to unleash a part of us that maybe hasn't been unleashed before, it feels new and it feels like we're growing, that is a really, really healthy sign. So how do we create this? How do we create this community of supportive people? It's more than just making friends. Actually, I'll link up above a video I did a couple months ago around how to make friends as an introvert, as an INFJ. I'm assuming you're an introvert because most of the people I work with and that are attracted to my work naturally are. A lot of them are INFJ on Myers-Briggs too. I am, so I don't really know how that's happening. People are just kind of attracted to that. I think we pick up each other's vibes. But nevertheless, assuming you are like the people I work with, in that you are introverted, it's really difficult for us as introverts to go to an event with the sole purpose of making friends. It's a little bit overwhelming. And so what can actually be really, really helpful is to instead go to an event, go to a place whereby the goal isn't to make friends, but the goal is to be engaged in an activity that's really, really meaningful and important to us. So for me, for example, that would be wild swimming. That would be getting involved in groups locally with regards to helping reverse climate change and help reduce the use of single-use plastics, veganism, animal activism. I'm starting to volunteer at a shelter tomorrow, which I'm super, super excited about. So for me, building the community here, because I'm in an area that I didn't expect to be in, but that actually ends up working really well for me, building community, the best way that I've done that is to engage myself in activities that I love, causes I care about, and to meet like-minded people through that as a byproduct. Even if the intention was to build community, which it was most of the time, you're still not going there going, how do I make friends? Because that's kind of tough. It's kind of a tough call, right? It's a lot easier to go to an event where you're engaged in the activity and you meet people who are similar to you, who hold similar values. And of course, then they're more likely to be the types of people that are forward thinking, growth oriented, want to support you, want to see you grow, want to help you unleash that side of you that's been kept down and trapped down by old people from your past. So it's super, super important that you surround yourself with the right people. I fully know and admit, and I'm not naive to the fact that many of us are locked down and perhaps in environments that we wouldn't ordinarily choose to be in. Many in-person events are not going ahead at this time, but use this time to plan. Use it to plan. Get a plan together. Even if you can't leave right now, you can't leave the environment you're in right now, get a plan. Make a plan, have a deadline. It's so good for your inner child to say, we're leaving at this point, right? Especially if some shit went down when you were little and you weren't able to leave, because it's really interesting, and I've talked about this before, the trauma that we experience as children who are in abusive households, violent households, or on the extreme end, and then on the less extreme end, but still very much has a huge impact on us, environments where our emotional needs are not met, it's very traumatic because we can't leave. And so a psychologist friend of mine actually explained to me that that trauma is the highest possible level of trauma, because it's the same level of trauma that hostages experience, which is, I'm depending on my captors to keep me alive, but I think I'm not safe, I think I'm going to die. It's the same exact, psychologically, it's the same exact process. I know that might sound a little bit out there, but psychologically it checks out. My psychologist friend told me. And she explained it in such a way, I'm like, that makes complete sense. So it's true, when we're kids, we can't leave. We're dependent on the people around us to take care of us. And if they're abusive or emotionally neglectful, or if you feel unsafe in any way for any reason, even if it's just perception rather than reality, or if it is reality, either way, it's a place that you can't leave. And so that's very, very hard. And so if you find yourself in that environment now, it's super important that you're able to get a plan together, right? You're an adult, you're powerful, and it is absolutely amazing to me what I've witnessed over the past 4 years since coming back from Canada, when I've been in environments that help me to thrive, and how far I go and how fast I go. And then when I'm around people who are in my hometown, that are old people in my life that pull me back to a place that I don't want to go to. I'm a very strong person. I'm a very determined, resilient person. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the people we surround ourselves with will pull us back or pull us forward. And it doesn't matter how strong we are impacted by our environment, especially if we have a trauma history. Point number 3, questions to ask yourself to establish whether you're around the right people or not. Because it can be kind of fucked up, right? It can be kind of fucked up, especially if you're around family, because you're like, oh, my family love me. They might do, and they might be great people, but they might have been shitty parents. Or you might have had trauma in your household home, and there's this kind of Stockholm syndrome that develops where you kind of bond with your captors. It's a whole thing. But the questions to ask yourself to get really, really clear on this is, am I floundering or am I flourishing? Am I floundering or am I flourishing in this environment? Am I in the same place I was 6 months ago or a year ago? Am I able to grow in this environment? Do I feel like these people really love me and want to see me thrive? Do these people respond well when I set a boundary or raise my standards? Do these people respond well when I branch out and do new things? Right? Is that the case or not? If you're listening to this and you're like, hell no, no, these people don't respond well, then that's your sign. And this doesn't necessarily mean family, by the way. It could mean roommates, because what we often do is we go off into the world as adults and then we replicate the environment that's familiar to us. So does your roommate that really pisses you off, do they remind you of your mother? Right? Are you living with someone that reminds you of your father or your brother or whoever it is? Because that's just the same as being at home with family or spending excessive time with family. You're still being pulled back into that old role because it's exactly the same dynamic. It's just playing out with different people. And that's all our dating drama is as well. It's us looking to replicate those dynamics that are familiar to us, and we're just playing out the same dynamic with different people, different men, different women, whoever you date, and we're just replicating the dynamic from our family home, which wasn't healthy, because if it was healthy, we wouldn't have to reenact it, because we don't build trauma bonds with healthy people. So I'd love to know what you took away from this. Let me know in the comments down below. We talked about old patterns and old people and how that can pull us back, and how it's kind of like having the anchor down on a speedboat. You can move forward, but it's really, really hard. I also talked about those new opportunities and those new people and how that pulls you forward, because they help unleash a side of you that perhaps hasn't had permission, subconsciously or consciously, to be unleashed before, and how to build that community, especially as an introvert or a highly sensitive person. And then we also talked about some questions that you can ask yourself to really test if this is an environment where you are either floundering or flourishing. So do let me know what your biggest takeaway was, and I'd love to also hear what action step you're going to take as a result today. The reason why I ask those questions, I ask them to all my clients, I ask them in my courses, is because it's one thing watching a video, or indeed reading a personal development book, or listening to a podcast and having a aha moment, having an epiphany, and then getting out the car or putting down the book or closing your phone or your MacBook and forgetting all about the book or the podcast episode or the video and not doing anything with it. It's so important that we implement it. So that's why it's important for you to know, and you don't have to share it if you don't want to, but it's often helpful to do it publicly, because then there's that accountability. It's helpful to know what your biggest takeaway was, because then you know that's what I took away from that. That was my key learning. And then action step is even more important, because it's what you're going to do with this info now. As a result of this, what are you going to do? Is it looking for a new place to live? Is it looking at your finances? Is it deciding to create some distance between you and the people that are holding you back? And by the way, I never want you to take rapid or hasty action as a result of any of this information. So let it integrate for a minute. You know, it's more than likely you've been in this dynamic for years, so you'd have to cut people off like yesterday. But just take some time to kind of, you know, ask yourself those questions, and just decide in yourself, you know, are these people that I want to continue to be around, or am I falling into an old role of being the supporter, being the helper, and then when I'm in a dark place, you know, the people that I thought were close to me go silent. Not that I've been through that recently. I have, and that was quite illuminating. So I'm not immune to this either, and I think I've always been really open and really transparent that like this is my work too. I'm here to work on my relationship stuff and I'm here to teach on it, and I always want to stay a few steps ahead of wherever you are so that you can learn from me and learn from everything that I've learned or been reminded of. And you know, these lessons around environment and being around the right people, it's not a revelation to me. It might not be a revelation to you, but it's something that I've been reminded of over the past 4 years, where I've seen that I've had these phases of living with people who help me thrive, living with people who really keep me back in an old pattern. And it doesn't mean anyone's bad or wrong. I think when we use words like, you know, dysfunctional and abusive, we conjure up all kinds of ideas in our head of what that can look like, and a lot of that is valid. A lot of it is valid, but I don't mean to demonize anyone, but just to recognize that some of that behavior isn't healthy and it's holding you back, right? And sometimes our behavior isn't healthy either, because we're playing into it, we're enabling it, we're letting it continue. And again, that's not to blame ourselves either, but to just understand how much power we have in our dynamics. And if you do want more, I have some really beautiful courses that can help you, and the details are down in the comments. I'm just going to scoop my own announcement. I'm going to start a November sale. I haven't announced it publicly yet. I will be doing probably on Thursday when lockdown lockdown 2.0 starts. So I'm going to have a sale on my courses. So you might want to click on that if you're looking at this in November of 2020, because I really want to help you get started. This work is so powerful. When we can really work through this and learn and apply what we're learning, it's huge. It changes everything. So I really would love for you to accept that invitation and just have a look and see what your next step is and how you can help yourself, because you're not powerless at all. And I know I did a video recently, Powerless to Empowered, and it's very much that way, you know, where our overcoming of our dating drama and our healing of our relationship with ourselves is very much a journey from feeling powerless and in these cycles that we can't break, to breaking the cycle and feeling empowered and feeling like we know ourselves, we know our own power. And if you're here to learn about relationships, which you are because you struggle with it, that means you have a soul contract. People that have soul contracts, well, we all have soul contracts, but what I have seen with the people I work with and with the people that are attracted to my work is generally they're really quite old souls. And when we're old souls, we have so much power. You have more power than you know. You have so much more power than you know. And if the people that are around you right now don't believe in you, I do. I believe in you. You can do this. You can change. You can transform. I see it all the time in my private practice. I see it all the time with the women that I work with. I see my friends transforming. Transformation is something that happens. And so the reason you're stuck right now is because this is very karmic. I've just been reminded of a meditation. I'm going to link it up above about breaking the cycle with our ancestral line. So definitely check that out if that calls to you. That's what it is. That's why it feels difficult, because it's kind of a karmic cycle. We probably have a lot of karma with our family. I'm more than likely going to create at some point a past life regression for you so that you can really understand what your work is with your family, because it's karmic a lot of the time. Our souls know these people. we've seen these motherfuckers before, you know what I mean? Like, we're like, oh, you again, great. Are we going to incarnate again, or are we going to sort it out this time? So I know it's a little bit more of a kind of a spiritual soul element, but so important, because that's why it feels difficult, because it's karma. And when I say karma, I don't mean, oh, it's karma and it goes around and karma's going to come back to get you. I mean karma as in lessons to learn, soul contracts, and things to overcome and cycles to break. This was a really long video, but I hope it helped you. Thank you for visiting me in my pillow fort. I'm probably going to work from here for the rest of the afternoon. I'm going to edit the video from here, probably, to be honest. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe if this resonates with you. You can find me on Instagram as well. I'm on Twitter. Probably Instagram's the best place to find me, as well as the YouTube machine right here. And yeah, I believe in you. I'll see you next time.